Okay. So, Brett, where are we today? Where are we videoing from today?
From the barracks room of the old fire station in Palm Desert.
Do you remember when it was the barracks room?
I do.
Oh, really? So tell us about that.
I was a volunteer fireman here.
You were a fireman?
Volunteer, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
I'm dying to hear about this.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah. How many years ago?
Well, it started in 65 through 70 approximately.
How many firemen, permanent firemen did they have?
We had one full-time and one rotation person. One person lived here with his family, Andy Herrick.
Oh.
And as a matter of fact, his daughter's footprints are in the cement out there in the front.
Okay.
Many people don't know that, but they're there.
I always wondered whose footprints those were.
Yeah, those little footprints as you come in. That's the daughter's. There was
How
a
old
son.
was she when she had those?
She was tiny. I don't know. She was tiny. And then there was a relief fireman that came in.
He lived off.
He would live someplace else. He would spend his time here. And volunteers would meet in this room. And then if you had a long duty coverage, you would spend the night here too. The office was up front.
So did you ever spend the night here?
I don't think I did. Spent a full day.
Were there a lot of fires?
No, it wasn't a busy station.
Yeah. Do they also tend to like emergency?
We had an emergency rescue van.
Mm-hmm.
It was a panel truck, a Chevy panel truck. First time I ever drove Highway 74 was in that panel truck, red light and siren, all at 25 miles an hour, going up Highway 74. Got up to the top of the hill. Guy was already dead by the time we got here. But,
where's the top of the hill? Do you like?
Up Pinion area.
Pinion? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that fire truck out there? Did you ever ride for real in that fire truck for a fire? Or?
We're not sure that fire engine that is not out front right now, but in back, is exactly the one. It's the right vintage. It's the right model. It was for what our first run truck was. I qualified on it. I was a qualified engineer on it. We also had a second engine, which was a little older. So.
What are the qualifications to drive a fire truck?
The station manager would make sure you knew how to shift the gears and drive the thing, how to operate all of the pumps, basically how to function. Because typically when you went out, you were by yourself. Mm-hmm. And you hope somebody would come in behind.
Did they call? Sometimes they would call the volunteer to hurry up and come down here?
If there was an emergency, a fire, medical, whatever, there were two ways. We had an air raid siren that was located behind Keaty's, and there was a pull station in here that you could pull the lever on, and that would set off the air raid siren, and the plates would shake on the counter in Keaty's. The other there was a Plectron. All volunteers had a Plectron radio in their home, and so there was a tone sent out to wake you up and tell you it was time to come to the station.
Is that similar to a ham radio, the Plectron?
No.
What is that?
No, it's a fire radio.
Oh.
And it's listening to the fire frequency.
I see. But
the Plectron was the model or the manufacturer of it. There's around here someplace. I don't know if they're still here, Bob. There is a radio that's not a Plectron, but it's similar. There's also a small portable receiver, which was one that I had. It was a Federal 1010. For a period of time, I was the only one on the rescue unit. And so I had a portable one that I took to school with me. And
in case there was an emergency during school?
Right.
Did you ever have to be called out of the classroom?
Yes. Hmm.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The college was, in those days, the college was very supportive of community activities.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a call, that was fine. I told my class I'd be back when I got back. And that was it. You took off and you did what you had to do.
What would be an example of an emergency?
Well, it could be
CPR?
any.
You have to.
It could be a fire. It could be, yeah, CPR. We did CPR, minor first aid. We had something called a resuscitator. There's an old one. There was anyway. There was the one inside that engine out there. A little green box is called a resuscitator,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a way it pumped oxygen a little under pressure, try to keep people going. And then you'd wait for an ambulance to come. The ambulance was out of Fitzhenry. It was a hearse that was converted into an ambulance, and then
Where was that located? That
Indio.
Oh,
Our
in
nurse,
Indio.
yeah, any people that required hospitalization went to Indio, and
Did
it
you
was not
call
like
the-
you have today.
Did you call the ambulance yourself, or did they?
No, it was everything was handled through the dispatch, fire
I see.
dispatch.
Where was the dispatch person?
Dispatch was located primarily in Indio, but also in Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
For local distribution, it was out of Indio. There at the fairgrounds is where the station was.
Did you ever have an emergency like that? Some people that you knew?
That I knew, no,
Mm-hmm.
no.
You came here in 1964,
64, a couple of days ago.
and the campus actually opened in 61? or
62,
62.
62, yeah.
So, how did you get that job?
I applied for it.
Oh, yeah?
It was kind of an interesting thing. I applied. I got a call saying come out for the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I was a graduate student. I didn't have any money. I was in New Mexico.
Oh, you weren't here yet?
No, I was in New Mexico. And so I said, yeah, I can't afford it. It was Dr. Ingalls, Ed Ingalls that called. And he was the dean of instruction. He said, well, can you come out for an interview? And I said, no, I can't do it. I still had finals to do and everything else. And I'd taken the call in my advisor's office,
Mm-hmm.
the college advisor's office. And he's going, waving his arms, no, that's the wrong answer. So I hung up. And he says, you're supposed to tell him, sure, send me a ticket. That's, in those days, the schools paid. Today
Yeah.
they don't. But back then they did. So about 15, 20 minutes later, I got a call back from the college asking me if they'd sent a ticket, whether I'd come. So I did.
Is that an airline ticket? Or
Yeah, airline flew me out, put me up in a motel.
Which hotel? Which motel?
It was the Roadrunner, which is now called, what's it called, Bob? Up there in India, Indian
there?
Wells. Yeah, it's still there. It's the Nest is the restaurant.
The
Nest is the restaurant.
Is it still
Oh,
called
yeah,
Roadrunner? It's just
yeah.
right down here.
Yeah.
The Sands, they just fixed it?
Sands, could be
I
the
think it's
Sands, yeah.
I've
Yeah,
had friends stay there, but.
yeah. Yeah.
Had you been here before?
No, and met the division chair, department chair, and got a
Who was
tour of the
that?
camp.
Who was
That was Lindsay Winkler,
that?
and
The
met the
Department of Science?
yeah, and met the president and his wife. President was Dr. Roy McCall. He was quite a person.
In what way?
He was just really an outstanding president. He was of the old Germanic school. I'm not sure how to describe it other than he was just an outstanding person. But I remember going to the house, and his wife looked down. The only shoes I had were cowboy boots. And she looked down and kind of got a strange look when she saw my cowboy boots. And so then they had the interview. They had a restaurant in the dining hall at that time. You could actually get a full meal in the evening. And so ate there. Flew back. Got the job.
Did they give you a tour of the area?
Oh yeah, well, toured the college,
Mhm.
not of the area.
What was
somewhere.
your impression of the college?
Well, took the job. It's a small college. We had a total of about 3,000 students in. Was offered the job. I came out that August. In August, it was a little warm. Drove up on campus. Looked out. Didn't look like anybody lived in Palm Desert because as you look out from the campus, there was that row of palm trees, and there wasn't much of anything north of the palm trees. And so we went back to Indio and got an apartment because we didn't think anybody lived in Palm Desert. And then we found out people lived in Palm Desert, and we got an apartment here. We were in White
You and
Sands.
Rose together?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. And the White Sands was our first apartment here.
Oh.
It's over on Santa Rosa,
Mhm.
just basically Santa Rosa and Portola.
How did you get to school? Did you get a car? Or?
I had a car when I came
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you could drive from, come in on Miles, and it was a beautiful, no smog, just a beautiful, clean air. Look at the,
Is that where you came down Miles?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And introduction to the Board of Trustees. When I was hired, all the faculty were taken to the Board of Trustees meeting for introduction. Dr. McCall taught at the University of Pacific prior to coming down here.
Of Pacific?
University of Pacific, which is College Pacific at that time.
Is that Santa Barbara?
No, that's Stockton.
Oh, okay.
And so it turns out my father built and owned the student union on the University of Pacific. I didn't know him, but he knew the family. And so the introduction to the Board of Trustees was, I remember this kid when he used to go around on his bicycle kicking over garbage cans. That was my introduction to the Board of Trustees.
That's
So.
cute. How many people, let's say you went before a group of people, how many people were in that group?
The board was, what, 5 or 6?
Oh,
I don't recall. We got pictures of them in there someplace.
Originally there was, I see there was three buildings. Says it was 3 buildings. Is that true? The science group was the first phase of the laboratory building, or is that, do you know about that?
Well, there were more than 3 buildings when I came. As a matter of fact, they were just finishing the library at that time.
Were you there when the library opened?
Yeah, it was under construction when I arrived. And there was the shower locker room across the way, science building, the theater arts, or the lecture hall, which is now a theater arts type thing. That was a science lecture hall at that time.
Did you lecture in the science lecture hall?
No, I had, my classes were never that large. The 2 lecture rooms were about 60, and then 60 each, and the main one was 150 maybe. First year I taught, I had a total of 18 students. Total, in all of my classes, a total of 18 students.
What classes did you
That
teach?
was physics.
Physics?
That was strictly physics at that time,
Strictly physics.
the first year. I later on, I taught a meteorology class, a strength of material class. I introduced the first computer classes, taught math. When I retired, I was teaching math and seeing up 250 to plus students a semester. From 18 to 250, that's quite a change.
What was it like, for example, when you first started teaching physics? What was the testing like there, as opposed to when you left? The test, what were the tests like? How do they differ?
Well, I don't know that they differed in the sense.
One was by hand and then one was by computer?
Uh, no, with the math, I switched over with the large classes. I switched over to a multiple choice test
Oh, you did.
because you just couldn't score that many, read that many papers.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it was, and with the larger classes, with the calculus classes and classes that had smaller enrollments, I shouldn't say larger, the higher classes that would have smaller enrollments, there you could actually read problems,
Mm-hmm.
do more like, I guess you could call it more like an essay, except they were math problems. But when you're talking to the lower level algebra classes with 60, 70 students in a class, you don't have time to read that many papers.
Did you have an assistant?
As interestingly, when I had 18 students, I had a student. When I had 250 students, I didn't. So that was the difference in the world.
Yeah.
That kind of goes with McCall. We were a college under McCall. We became more of a factory over time.
Yeah.
Because the enrollments came big, too many students, not too many students, but larger numbers of students.
What did you think of it when the enrollment grew like that?
Well, it's good and bad. You're glad to see the students there, but it does change the flavor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How many other instructors were there besides you in that particular department?
In the physics,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's still only one. I'm not sure. There may be one and a half. But
What's the half?
well, that would be a part-time person
Okay.
coming in and taking. But yeah, I don't know that. Even when I retired, there was only one full-time physics.
Why did they give you classes of math and other things besides physics?
Well, actually, the other classes were like the computers. I introduced the computers into the instructional program. The others, they would come up short. They needed somebody to teach class, so you'd say, okay, I'll take it and do it. That's how I got into the meteorology. They wanted to have a meteorology class. Okay, we'll try it out, see how it goes. Strength of materials, that was, they just needed somebody that had the background that could teach it. They needed the class. So it was like I was going to say with Dr. McCall, it was a college. You showed up to class with a white shirt and tie. I could get by with a lab coat because it was science, but otherwise you wore a suit jacket or a sport coat. Today you show up in shorts and a t-shirt.
What do they call you? What do the students call you?
Well, it was there again. It was a formal. It was Mr. and when I spoke to the students, it was Mr. or Miss. It was it was a formal of the old Germanic school. I thought I liked it. To me, that's the way things should be.
Why is that the way things should be?
Because.
Okay, Mr. Romer.
Yeah, I think that the learning experience is better for the student. There's when you're too chummy with the students, you lose some of that respect that needs to happen.
Now, what was the students' dress code?
Students, students were to dress properly. They didn't wear shorts. They did wear shoes. I remember one instance, a good friend of mine who was dean of men, Bob Jordan. He was in charge of handling those issues. Dr. McCall made sure that he did his job. And they had a student that came in, or wanted to come without shoes. And Bob had to call him into the office. And the kid said, well, Jesus didn't wear shoes. And Bob says, well, I'll tell you what. He says, you go out to the fountain and walk across the water. I says, you don't have to wear shoes either. So that was a different, a different kind of thing. It's the students respected the campus. It was a whole different world.
Was part of your duty to set them up to go on to a four-year college, or?
Well, very definitely. We were.
Mm-hmm.
The college there were really two parts to it. There was the transfer program that was intended. The students were expected to transfer onto the university. And then we had, which was called, when I was in college, was called a T&I program, Trade and Industry, which was the vocational programs. And we had a very, very extensive vocational program.
Give me an example of some of the
They had carpentry, they had welding, they had auto mechanics, diesel mechanics, air conditioning, the nursing program that's still there. I had an outstanding culinary arts program. Had a lot of those things. They kind of disappeared over time. That was I'm sure what the cause was, but community colleges got out of the business of vocational education. It's kind of interesting. Just at having lunch today, I was listening to the news, and there was an ad for College of the Desert, and it sounds like they're getting back into the vocational programs, which I'm happy to see. I think that's here again. That's kind of again the old Germanic school. I see it in Denmark, where I just returned from, that they have, as you progress through the educational system, you go on to the university or you go into a vocational area, and you go into an apprenticeship type thing. And that's really, we need those people. We need people that are there. We've overemphasized the educational side, if you wish, or the university side. We got a lot of taxi drivers that have high degrees that can't use their degrees. They're useless people. They're overeducated and can't do anything.
At the machine shop I can't remember his name, but I really enjoyed that. They had a really nice machine shop.
Yeah, that was Harold Crow. Yeah, he lived over in Fairway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Machine shop?
Yeah, he had a beautiful machine shop. We had all of this neat stuff.
What years was that they had?
That would have been in the 60s to 70s.
Into
I
the
think
70s?
I think it kind of started dying out in the mid 70s to the 80s. Things started going away, vocational programs.
Mm-hmm.
But had a beautiful thing. The machine shop is now a theater building.
Mm.
Yeah.
They had cooking classes too, is that right?
The cooking class, yeah. They had a cooking and they had the chef's program. And it was a tremendous program. And now they're talking about trying to bring that back. Now also, just kind of history of the college, it was around 71, 72, Dr. McCall called me in the office and said, you've been complaining about the computers on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I had. He says, well, do you want to show me whether you can do any better? And so all of a sudden I was now the director of computer services. And so I went 1 year, I tried to teach and do both. That didn't work very well.
Why? Too much?
Well, it was too much. You can't. The students could never find me because I was always over at the other place, and it was too much of a load. But I did that for many years.
What years did they get the computers? That you.
Well, they had computers when I came.
Mm-hmm.
It was an old card system, an IBM 36020, I think it was. The card system, not very. Was having a hard time keeping up with the load, couldn't give good reporting, so on. So when I was hired, I was able to go out and get a new computer. We ended up, went through something called a negotiated proposal, where we had all of the different vendors come in, and they would make a suggestion what we should get and what the price was. And my standard answer was, I love it, but it's too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
and kept the
What'd you
prices.
end up getting?
We ended up going with a Hewlett-Packard 3000 Model B. We were able to do online registration. We were the first community college in the state of California to do fully online registration.
Who did that program? Who made that program?
Who wrote it? A combination of myself and another person that I'd hired.
Mm-hmm.
The key was the design of the database, which I designed up in Cupertino when I was attending their college or their school at
In
Hewlett-Packard.
Cupertino?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I went up to Hewlett-Packard training.
Oh.
We had, it's kind of an interesting thing on that. We actually did remote registration. Young lady Suzanne Pell, who handled all the off-campus classes, wanted to be able to do the online registration, but do it from like Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got a Silent 700, Texas Instruments Silent 700. If you wish laptop, it was just a modem, remote keyboard, and it had a place where you could put the handset for the phone in it, and you would call
What
up
year
the...
was that?
Oh, this would have been 74, 75, somewhere, maybe 73. So she went, took one to the class in Palm Springs. All there was a payphone in the hallway. And of course it has just a short cable. And so she had to get a stool and a lot of books and stuff and put the terminal on the top of this thing, and she had got it connected. And I actually enrolled the class online from Palm Springs.
Why was it Palm Springs instead of?
Well, it was a remote class. It was one of the
Oh, I
off-campus,
see.
off the campus class.
Now, how did the people off campus, who were the students, how did they access? They had their own computer?
No, this was they were teaching. We were teaching classes there. We actually, the instructor would go
Oh.
there.
And where were the students?
They would be in the classroom. We didn't have remote. This
Oh.
online registration or online classroom, which is kind of questionable as to how useful it is.
Right.
No,
Well, you could
no,
have
they
that.
actually these were regular classes.
Mm-hmm.
We could hold a class here. You know, that was.
Oh, I
In
remember.
other words, you wanted a class in music history. If you had enough people that said they wanted it, we would find an instructor and offer it wherever you wanted it. So that was
The
we
students were off. They were not in that room. They were somewhere
Oh no,
else.
they were in that room.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like it's an extension class. It's a regular class. Regular class.
Did they have extension classes there too?
Well, that is an extension class.
Meaning not, what does that mean, extension class?
Well, it was being held off campus. It
Oh,
was
okay.
It was a real class in a real room with a real teacher with real students.
Did you ever have any of your own classes like that?
I taught a couple of classes up at the Marine base in
Mhm.
29 Palms. That was a long drive.
Was that a COD class?
Yeah, COD was the Copper Mountain College, which
Mhm.
was started off. First, what happened was the college district, COD's district, included the Upper Desert, included 29 Palms, Yucca Valley, that area. That was part of the district,
Mm-hmm.
the college district. So we actually offered classes up there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, remote classes. We offered classes on the Marine base, many classes there, and I went up and taught a couple of math classes there. Later on, it started to grow up there, and it had more of a need. And Copper Mountain campus was built, which is an interesting story on its own,
Yeah,
because
I don't know about
the state would not finance it. State would
it.
not.
Because,
They didn't feel it was
I
necessary.
see.
And so the local people up there actually got the money together and built the campus on their own.
It's an interesting campus.
Yeah, yes, it is. And so they actually started their own, if you wish, community college. And then later on, of course, as they grew, there was a need for them to separate and become their own college, which is what happened. So they became the Copper Mountain College.
That wasn't part of COD then?
That is no longer part of COD.
Okay.
And the district separated into that they removed themselves from the Coachella Valley district here, so that they were no longer part of this school district.
Why would they want to do that?
Tax-wise,
Oh, okay.
that way they get their own taxes. They become their own real entity. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What year did they
I
separate?
couldn't give
Did
you
you ever
that.
teach up there at Copper Mountain?
Did I ever? No, but in that time I was with the computer services, so I worked very closely with them in supplying computer services, but not. I don't recall ever teaching on that campus.
What about other COD areas? Like there was a COD in Coachella or something, right?
No, we had remote classes. We had classes throughout. The original plan for COD called for the first growth campus or second campus was to be in the Coachella area.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen, as we well know, but that's the expected growth of the valley was to go that direction,
Mm-hmm.
which is happening today, but it didn't. It took a little longer to get there.
I see that you have done quite a lot of interviews yourself.
Yes,
How many would you say you've done?
I have no idea.
20?
I have no idea.
And tell me about, can you remember some highlights of those interviews that you took?
I think there's probably, well, there are several of them that I guess if I went back through and looked at them, they would really stand out.
There's one notation about Don McNeely that you work closely with him. Is that true?
I knew Don. I didn't.
Okay.
Wouldn't say I worked closely with him.
He's thanking you in one of these.
Yeah.
Um,
Rob, your current president of the Historical
okay.
Society, not him, but his father.
All right.
He was an amazing man,
Oh, yeah?
and really he was.
What was his name?
Bob.
Oh, yeah?
And he was just. I've got several things of him. I remember a couple of times that he and Hal Rover would be sitting back here just BSing, and about this and that and all these other things. And so I'd go get the tape recorder and stick it down between them and get an oral interview of them.
Sure.
But it was just BS sessions. He had a lot of interesting stories. Probably the one you and I talked about this the other day
Lou?
was Lou Gehrig. Lou
Keener?
Keener. Lou
Yeah.
Keener.
Yeah.
Lou is a fantastic person. We had a great interview with him, and he was
Tell me
hired.
about him.
He was originally hired by Shadow Mountain Country Club.
Lifeguard?
No, he was maybe lifeguard too, but primarily he was to work with the young people and to put together programs for the entertainment director, I guess you'd call him.
see.
And worked with the young people. He hired
Betty Crockett.
Betty Crockett, and who was young. I think she was probably 17, 18 years old then, and she was just a fantastic person with the young people too. I don't know, Bob, were you?
I guess I was in Betty's
You were
swim
in-
class. Right.
Oh, is
My
that
mom would
right?
take me out to Shadow Mountain Club and I would
Right.
get a lesson from Betty.
Yeah, she was. Now that was really an exciting time.
What year was that then?
Well, that would have been
For me, that was summer of 1956.
Okay.
yeah.
So Betty had first, because I talked to Betty, she said, that's when I first got here. She came to
Yeah.
Shadow Mountain Club and
Yeah.
Is she still around, Betty?
No, she passed away 5, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and So, but they were an outstanding crew between Lou and Betty.
Yeah, that was the
Did Lou-
social center of Palm
Yeah,
Desert.
yeah.
And Lou
Yeah.
put together these, they had a dining room and Lou would put together different entertainment. So you didn't just get dinner, you got entertainment. There was all kinds of stuff going on.
Oh yeah, that was.
Like
It was
what?
a-
Give me an example of some.
Well, they had parties.
Okay.
It was a party place. It was and during the day it was a family place, family oriented with the young kids. And at night it was I'm going to say adult, but not adult in the sense that we see today. But it was for the adults. It was a party. They had dances. They had shows. They had you name it. Interestingly, I was never a member of that.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I never.
Is there a reason?
Well, I have to remember, I was a young physics
Right.
teacher. I wasn't too much into the social type thing. And it was, even though I don't think it was that expensive, to me, anything over $5 was expensive. You know,
Yeah.
so it was, it was not,
Yeah.
it was not my
A
kind of
different
place.
scene.
Not my kind of place at that time.
Yeah.
But when I look back at it and the stories I hear of it, it was quite a place. It was really. There's probably a lot of
Those
stories.
kids sneaked in. We weren't really
Yeah.
members, but we sneaked in and it was okay.
Yeah, and there were so many people your age that were part of that, and
Me
the
and
story.
Dick Hartley and Richard Wood and
Yeah,
a lot of other guys. Yes.
we got some pictures of Richard Wood in there when he was a little kid up Shadow Mountain Country Club.
Tell me about Richard Wood. Is there-
He's a former student of mine. He's
Oh.
Bob's age.
Yeah.
He was very active in the Shadow Mountain type thing.
He taught dance classes
Yeah.
for adults and kids, and he was very busy. He was always putting together parties.
You're talking about Lou right now.
Lou, yeah. Oh, he also had Leisure Loft over in Rancho Mirage, which was a place where it was a what do you call it? Where you could take your small children for the day, a daycare center.
Oh.
But it was more than just a daycare. It was they had a little education type thing. Our son went there for a while.
Now, where is this now?
And that was over in Rancho
Is it
Mirage.
still there?
No.
What was the name of it now?
Leisure Loft.
Leisure Loft.
And it was down about where the river, down the back of the
Right,
river area.
right.
Someplace in
And
that,
Rancho Mirage.
yeah. And, but he had that. When he left Shadow Mountain and became the
Lou.
first, Lou did, became the first president of the Chamber of Commerce. And there are pictures of him in there standing beside the car with a Palm Desert Chamber sign on it and so on. After that, he was,
1957.
yeah,
That was
after
before
that,
you came.
yeah, before I came, yeah.
Mhm.
After that, he went to the Desert Arc, which
Mhm.
was the foundation for the retarded at that time.
Mhm.
He was not the first. There was a lady that they hired. She only lasted a month as the first director, and then he went in. So he becomes effectively the first director of the Desert Arc, and did some fantastic things there. Just his attitude towards the kids. The one thing I remember him talking about in the interview was he'd take the kids for trips up in the mountains, and the kids were walking across this log, going across the creek, and some of the parents were saying, well, they can't do that. And he says, they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know they can't do it. So they did it. And that, he was just, that kind
Taught
of,
him to reach.
he knew how to work with
Very
it,
enthusiastic. Yes.
Yeah.
He always kept you busy.
yeah.
He had a pink convertible?
It was, well, it's, yeah, it was kind of pinkish colored. Yeah, the the Palm Desert Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Commercial was, yeah, I think it was kind of a pinkish colored. And then when he left there, he went up to the state and worked with the retarded programs at the state level, and then he eventually retired retired back here in the desert again. He passed away, I think, about 5 years ago.
I think so.
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Yeah, luckily we all got to talk to him.
Yeah,
That was good. Oh, yeah, he came by and visited us quite often here.
yeah. He was quite a man. He was. I think, if anything, he was. I was going to say more than Clifford, the heart of Palm Desert, but not really. They're two different things. Two different things. But he was, as far as he and Betty Crockett, for the young people of Palm Desert, were just. They were key. They were central.
Right.
What
Fun.
about
They were
Betty?
fun.
Betty was, they weren't, they were just.
She
worked for
was.
them?
Yeah, she just worked for him.
And Madge, or, anyway, there's a
Magda.
Madge Rurak,
Oh.
anyway.
I think you're looking at some of the photos maybe that you found in there.
I'm
the-
looking at, I just try to find something. What about her? I mean, did you know her? Or?
I knew her, not well.
Okay.
She was the tennis coach, tennis teacher.
Yeah.
Did you take tennis from her?
No, I didn't. I knew her, but not well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about on the what kind of things do you remember, like places you went to eat, or the drugstore, or the Donkey Man, or stuff like that?
Yeah, Andy was around. I remember Andy down here, down at the
Where
corner.
was he exactly?
He was approximately at the intersection of Avenue 44, Fred Waring, and 111. It was that general area. He was on the west side of the highway there.
Or was it just an open? It was a lot, like a dirt
It was
lot or
open. Yeah, it was
something?
just open area. Well, you have to remember there was nothing here.
Yeah.
It was. This was all street around the fire station here. This was all open. Well, not totally because the sandpiper came in, but there wasn't much around.
How does it that the Donkey Man ended up being here?
How did he end up being here? Well, probably because his mules carried him here.
How many mules did he have?
I don't know.
They were donkeys. They were small,
Yeah.
and he would take kids on rides.
Yeah.
He was up in, like, he would be up in Mountain Center part of the time, and
Yeah, he would-
move them down Highway 74,
sure.
and then during the winter he would be down here.
Yeah. In the summer he went up the
Oh, I
mountain.
see.
Right.
And it was
'Cause
just.
I went on a donkey ride with one of my friends, but it was in Mountain Center. And really that little area hasn't changed much, and it was kind of a grassy area, and he would take kids around on his donkey.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if he was going up and down 74 with the donkeys, just going up and
Yeah.
down?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah? Did you ever see him
Yeah.
coming up and down on?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would actually. The donkeys would pull his wagon up. His wagon is over someplace in the thermal area, I think, right now.
It's not
Oh,
in the
really?
history.
That wagon is still here? Great.
We have there are pictures in there of it, and
Good.
with a location. Somebody found it,
Nice.
and has it someplace. And I think it's over in the thermal
I'm
area.
looking into it.
But
How much was a donkey ride?
I don't recall.
I don't remember. My friend's mother paid for it. I
Yeah.
don't remember how much it was. We were little kids.
Yeah.
I was probably about
Yeah.
6 or 7.
Where he'd sleep in the little wagon, and then
Yeah,
he'd
he'd
wake
sleep
up
in the
and
wagon.
people would come.
Yeah, and he would entertain people. I think there were
He
artists that
told
would.
stories the whole time.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, there were artists that came by. Remember, this was kind of an arty community in those days.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah, it kind of it's an interesting thing. This is my view of the development of Palm Desert. There were two key brothers. There were actually more, but the two key brothers, the Henderson brothers, Randall. Clifford was the entrepreneur. Without Clifford, this would not have happened. He put in this. He was involved in the physical development of Clifford was the one that, without Clifford it wouldn't have happened. There's no question. He was the guy that made it happen. Randall came in and put the Desert Magazine building in, and Randall kind of gave the flavor to the area.
I see.
Now Randall could not have made it happen. He could not have developed the desert, Palm Desert. He could not have made this happen, but he brought the flavor. and he brought
Give me
the
an
art,
example of what you mean.
the artists. He
Mhm.
brought the artists in. You see pictures of all these Southwest artists, the famous artists that would meet at Desert Magazine, and that was, and they would be out in the desert and they would be out by where Andy was. They'd
Would
be
they
all
have
over.
their
They'd be
easel out
all
there?
be out there. Yeah, they were camping out in the desert. So Randall brought those people in, and gave us the flavor that we see of Palm Desert.
Did you know either one of them?
No, I knew of them, but I didn't know them. Again, that was not my world.
Right.
I lived in a different world than those people.
Let's see.
Places to eat.
Yeah, let's talk about
Keaty's.
food.
Keaty's.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Keaty's. Keaty's is the only place to go. Well, I guess there were a couple other places.
What were the other places?
Well, the what is now Fresh Agave was Solito Lindo at that time. It's a good place to go get good Mexican food. And what
Yeah,
else
the
was
ice
there?
cream place?
There was the
there was the A&W root
A&W
beer place, really.
A&W.
That was the best A&W root beer place that was I ever went to.
A&W was just right up at the corner from Solito Lindo's or Fresh Agave
Where it was on 111?
on 111.
Oh.
And I can't think what the cross street is, but they're right there in the corner.
What was their specialty at A&W?
Well, that was the root beer.
I thought it was, oh, okay.
Well, they had hamburgers and things.
Yeah,
I would
but
go
they're-
there and get a hamburger and root beer.
Yeah.
It was really good.
But A&W was root beer, and then they had the hamburgers and French fries and stuff.
Mhm.
Other places there was, what was the place down there where there was a place down there at the end. It was Johnny Bash's. Before it was
Okay.
before it was Johnny Bash's. It's now Cactus Jack's.
Right.
What was called Johnny Bash?
Johnny
It
Bash.
was also Cleves. for a while.
Cleves. That was after Johnny. But
Yeah.
before there was a lot of chicken place in there.
Well, there was, I don't know,
There was.
Henny Penny chicken.
Yeah, Henny
or something.
Penny was over where the Circle K is.
And then there was for a while there was like the Young.
Young's, that's what I'm trying to
Is
think
that
of.
what it was?
Yeah, Young's was there with Johnny.
Because
Yeah,
they had
yeah,
a catering service. too.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I knew some of the Youngs.
yeah. That was
Same
that was.
location as Cactus Jack?
Yeah, Cactus Jack's. Yeah, that was Young's, Cactus Jar, Johnny Bash, and Cleves, and I think there was a couple others in between.
Yeah.
What else? Well, of course, there was the Fireside Inn,
Yeah, Firecliff.
Firecliff,
The
Firecliff,
Firecliff.
Firecliff.
It's not, where was that? Or is it the same location as it is now? Or?
No, it's a, you know where the,
Firecliff Lodge.
it's Firecliff was, you know where that new hotel is across from the mall, across from the gardens?
Yeah.
It was right back in that general area.
Oh, okay.
Okay, back there, kind
near
of.
El Paseo?
Yeah, it was on El
Oh.
Paseo,
Yeah, set back a little bit.
but it was set back. And where the gardens is, that was a condominium apartment type thing. There were apartments around the Firecliff.
But it's not there now at all?
No, there's, well,
What was
some of
that?
the apartments are still there from around that were there behind the
Right.
Firecliff. But the rest of it,
What would they have to eat in the Firecliff, for example?
you know, I never ate there.
Okay.
It was out of my price range.
It was
wasn't-
fancy
I went
schmancy?
there with my parents one time, and it was like steaks and seafood, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they wanted, I was just a little kid, but yeah, I had to sit still and be good. But it took a long time, and they wanted you to have drinks and things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was more of an adult place
Yeah,
where
yeah.
people would go
Yeah.
and drink and have dinner
Yeah.
and socialize.
Where'd you
Yeah.
go for, like, the grocery store?
Grocery, well, we had Village Market here. which was actually, yeah, it was there at San Pablo and 111.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, again, it was kind of a pricey place. Again, it was not a place I could afford to shop at.
Where did you go to shop?
We shopped in Indio.
All right.
We went to Indio. It was kind of, that's when you talk about development here. Back then, if we wanted to groceries, we went to Indio or Palm Springs. If you wanted furniture, maybe Indio, more than likely San Bernardino.
I see.
Okay. There was Imperial Hardware that you could get some furniture at, but
Where was
in,
Imperial?
in Indio.
I see.
But it didn't have much of a selection. You probably went to San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm.
As the desert grew, now we had markets. Market Basket came to Palm Desert. That's where Jensen's is today. So things came. You didn't have to drive to do, which is good. But then again, we got stoplights and traffic.
Rose, your lovely wife, she was the youngest of 8 children. Is that?
Yeah.
And tell me about her if you want to.
Well, I was going to college. I was in New Mexico. I came home for Christmas vacation. She worked for my father at the student union at the Pacific. We went out one night and I asked her to marry me.
The first night?
No, it wasn't the first time. Maybe the second or third. I don't know. We'd gone out a couple of times. And she told me to go home and sober up. So the next night I came and I said, well, now we're going to get married. And we went off to Carson City and got married.
Mm-hmm.
And
Did you come back and tell your parents, or did they?
we called them the next morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they called both sets of parents and told them we'd gotten married. So.
You were married in Sacred Heart?
No, Carson City. We got married the second time.
Oh.
We got married. That was she was a good Catholic, and so we were never officially married until we got married in the church. Right. And we got married at Sacred Heart. I think 3 or 4 years later.
Who was the priest at Sacred Heart at that time?
I can't remember. He was a good guy. It was funny because Rose was very concerned about my having to meet the priest because I was going to become argumentative in all of this, and so I met him, and I was waiting for all this stuff I was going to have to do, and he says, you guys been married this long, you must know what's going on. So he says, no problem. But I can't remember who it was. But
she worked at several jewelers.
she worked for Joe Phillips, who was the first jeweler in Palm Desert.
Where was that located?
He was his original shop was located in Village Market, but in the south end there was kind of a little area. Not part of the market. You couldn't go from the market to the shop, but facing out on the highway. And then he moved over to the Market Basket complex, and she worked for him until he retired. And then Les Gray took it over, and Les's daughter was Susan Gray from the Dallas program. Is that was her name? Yeah, Susan Gray. What was her name on Dallas? The Dallas program. Ellie or no?
I know her.
Yeah, I
Gray
know.
too.
Anyway, so she worked for him until he retired, and then she worked for a couple of shops over in the mall, which were commercial type, big jeweler chain type thing. She was never really happy with those. Well, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't the same as working in a small proprietorship. And then she worked for
Frasca?
Frasca's, and worked for her quite a few years. until she retired.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And I have some kind of notation about Duchess. Did you? Is there something?
Duchess was the sister to Cliff and Randall.
I see.
And
Was there a connection between you and her or somehow?
well, she came. I don't know. There was a connection. We spoke many times.
She was
she
coming
was-
to the firehouse?
She was more of a connection with Hal Rover,
I see.
and so and Hal and I were very close. And so
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump over to Mary Ann's Waffle House. Did you?
Marianne, I don't.
Did you know?
I've heard of it, that's before my time.
I don't recognize that.
And you have a son named Eric,
Yes,
and he has a daughter named Brittany.
Brittany. Yeah,
Brittany. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Where does she go to school now?
She going to school. She's 33 years old.
Oh.
My granddaughter is 33 years old. I guess that says something about how old I am. Yeah.
What about your son? Where did he go to school?
Where does he go to school?
Where did he when you were raising him?
He went to Indio High.
Okay.
Yeah, that was before Palm Desert High, and he's just finished his contractor's license and starting his own business right now.
How was he in science and math? Was he okay in that?
I think he, like many young people, they different. They
I know what you mean.
yeah.
I got him too.
He did better than I thought. How's that? When I hear him talk about his jobs today, he learned a lot more than I thought he learned.
I have the same thing with mine. Were you involved with Mini Muster? Or?
I was involved with Mini Muster.
In what way?
Well, primarily, the main thing I did was take pictures of all the kids. We have in there a picture of every third grader for the last, how many years? Everyone that went through the fire engine anyway.
Why is it called Mini Muster?
Well, muster means to gather, to get together, and
Okay.
the fire department when they training, or our military when they train, they talk about mustering to come together to train,
Troops, yeah.
and so it brings the people together to muster, to muster, and they're little kids,
Is it third grade?
third grade,
Why third grade?
because they're wonderful at that age.
Give me an example what that would be like. The teacher would bring them over, or?
Well, what happens is it's a combined effort between the fire department and the historical society.
Oh.
It was actually the program came out of, as I recall, it came out of Arizona, and what was her name?
Oh, the woman that started it?
Yeah,
Yeah?
no. We have a plaque around here someplace.
Yeah.
Tito?
Huh? God, I know the name well. Known her for years.
That's okay.
But anyway, she brought it here, and
What year?
I don't know when
Were
it
you
came.
here? Was it before you came? Or?
You know, I really don't know. I'm
Okay.
just a lot of these things you kind of happen
Oh, I
into.
don't know. I don't know how you remember it anyway.
You kind of happen into these things.
So were you
But you-
involved from the beginning, or you just?
Fairly much. Well, I'm not saying beginning, but fairly early. Anyway, it's a combined effort between the fire and the schools and the historical society. The schools have adopted it. The district, Desert Sands District, has adopted it. What happens is the fire department shows up on the school property. They bring equipment. The historical society shows up to staff part of it, and also if the fire department gets called out during the event, that means they're going to lose their staffing. So then the historical society is prepared to take it over to keep the program going. During this process, the The kids are introduced to how to handle a hose, how to handle a fire extinguisher, safety practices, how to crawl, how to find your way out of an area while you're blindfolded. A variety of activities to, shall we say, make them fire safe. And it's a tremendous program, and a lot of fun for the kids and for the adults that are participating.
Is it an afternoon? Or
It's a half a day, usually in the morning. By the end of the morning, the kids are sopping wet. Most of the firemen are sopping wet because they're squirting each other with the hoses. They have a bucket brigade where they get to work that. That's the one where they get the wettest, it seems like, because they're splashing water all over the place. But it's just a tremendous
They all get
program.
some kind of a certificate when
They get a
done?
certificate when they get done, which probably goes home and goes in the refrigerator door for a day or two and ends up in the trash. But
What was were you involved in the San Pablo corridor? Something
San
along that
Pablo,
line? Where, no, maybe not.
no.
I just taking some notes. So how long were you president of the Historical Society?
I think it was just 1 year, maybe two.
Maybe 2 years.
Maybe, I think it was 2 years. I think it was 2 years.
Then Harry was.
And then Harry. That's one thing that I see happening, and Rob, I think, is doing a tremendous job. And I'm not in any way, but I strongly believe that the officers should be turning over on a regular basis. There was a term limit originally, and that's the idea is that you train your vice presidents so they always move forward.
What do you think a term limit should be?
Well, I think 2 years. I think
2.
that's, if you want to come back in a couple of years and do it again. No, like I say, Rob is doing a tremendous job. I'm not in any way knocking
I
it.
know. Well, you're just,
But I see it I was very involved in the emergency communications in the county for a while. And there we've got a lady she's doing a great job too. But the problem is that if it doesn't turn over, you don't get any new ideas,
Yeah.
nothing happens. Things kind of get lost.
that's true.
And I think turnover to a certain extent, not a lot of turnover, but turnover to a certain extent is good. The same thing, I think, board members, you should rotate them out, in and out.
They have city councils too.
City councils. Washington D.C. That's probably
Oh,
the
we'll
worst
get into it.
worst example of need for that. Somebody said something about fish and.
Fish, yes. Yes.
Fish and smell? Is that?
They smell after 3 days.
But
Doesn't take that long.
but it's again, people can they may be doing excellent jobs,
Yeah.
but I think you
still
need
need a little.
you need a certain amount of turnover.
Just like you do outside in the soil, you need to
Yeah,
rotate
yeah,
your
need to
soil.
rotate it. Yeah,
Rotate your crops.
Yeah,
Right,
rotate the
right.
crops.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you? What do you think about the all the changes that you've seen over the years in Palm Desert?
It's grown.
Yeah.
It's grown. It's got traffic, got stoplights. It's
You know,
but you can shop here too.
yeah. He's going for the positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's changing.
Yeah, it's it's good and it's bad. It's old people that want to reminisce about all the way things used to be.
Yeah.
I used to be able to do this.
Do you go over to COD sometime now? Or you just
I no, not very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I remember about Palm Desert, this was before I went to COD, but when they first opened, there were a lot of dirt roads. Not
Yeah.
very many were paved at all.
Right.
I think, now, Portola, was it paved? Kind of an oil
Parkway.
road.
I don't think the
Parkway.
whole not the whole
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, and a lot of them. Well, Monterey ended at the college.
Correct. Correct. The bridges weren't there yet.
Yeah, no
So I had some
bridges.
friends that lived in Dream Homes, and there was Portola, and
Yeah.
you got to the end, to the wash, it
Yeah.
ended, and that was where people, there was a dump, that's where people
Right.
threw stuff.
Right, yeah, yeah, it
And
was,
111 was paved,
yeah.
but very few
But it was,
paved roads.
it was a two-lane road though, 111.
Correct.
It was two-lane,
road paved.
two-lane road. It was,
74 was paved.
74 was paved. But
What,
it was,
111
yeah,
wasn't
like-
paved?
huh?
It was-
111 was paved, yeah.
But it was just
two
two-lane,
lane.
okay. What
But you know,
about 74? That was two-lane.
talking about that, I remember when we came here, one of the things that we noticed was there were no sidewalks in Palm Desert. And asked the
No
realtor,
curbs, gutters,
why,
and sidewalks.
yeah, no curbs, no gutters, no sidewalks. And asked the realtor why there were no sidewalks. Sidewalks bring kids, young families and kids.
That's funny. Where'd you end up you know, you moved from the apartment, where'd you end up?
We went, we got our apartment on Santa Rosa, there in White Sands. Then we rented a house over on Peppergrass,
Mm-hmm.
and then we bought a house over on San Antonio Circle, and then we moved up to, by 72 we were up in Silver Spur Ranch.
You still there?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
How long you been there?
since 72.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we, Charlie White built the house. Do you remember Charlie? Charlie and Joyce? You remember Joyce White probably.
The Charlie
Joyce-
White I remember was a welder in Indio, but that's
No, this
not
no.
the same.
No, that's a different White, yeah, and this
Right.
is,
Did you buy
Joyce
that
Joyce
house?
White was very active in the community, or the Historical Society here.
Oh,
And
Oh.
Charlie was the builder. He built our house.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
So you're the one and only?
yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we were going went to them and looking at a lot at one end of the other end of the street, and we picked out the floor plan, and Charlie says, "Well, I'm building one down at the other end of the street, same floor plan." He says, "If you want that," he says, "I'll give you the spec price on it." So hey, you know what the heck?
Sounds good.
Which turned out to be the right thing, because a few years later we had that flood. Kathleen came through and really made a mess out of Palm Desert.
Oh,
Well,
were
it-
you here for the flood?
Oh yeah, yeah. And it came down through, and it came at the end of the street, took
Yeah.
out that lot, that original lot that we were looking at.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And, oh.
Did you have any damage to your house? during
No,
the
we
flood?
came clean. We were in good shape. We were at the right end of the block.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people had boulders go through their
Yeah,
walls and stuff.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
I wish I knew.
one street below us, it was mud to the eaves.
Coming down
And,
from the mountains?
Yeah, it was the.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say that you're just dying to say?
No, I don't think so.